Welcome back to Growing Up Late, the human algorithm. Emotion makes memory stick. Just like our social media algorithm, if we give focus and attention to something, it serves us up more of it. If I'm looking at recipes and cooking shows, I'm going to see a whole bunch of those, and I can switch over to funny cat videos. But if I make a mistake and wander down the dark alley of some other in-depth topic, well, that's what's coming next. And our brains do exactly the same thing. What we give attention to, it gives more of to us. And I realize that my wonderful imagination had been a little misguided for a lot of my life. I had pointed it very badly. I was looking at possibility and potential versus evidence. I had a bit of an allergy to reality. I saw things through my very own particular rose-colored glasses. And when all that came crashing down, my algorithm jumped the track. And just like an old, worn vinyl record, suddenly I was caught in a different groove. For most of my life, and my experience proved this out, of course, because belief is a powerful thing, I was telling myself the story of, I will succeed. I overcome everything. I am a winner. I will be triumphant. Good things, I believed that. And after this major personal and financial setback, when my needle skipped into the next groove, it was equally certain that I was not safe. Eventually, everything would fall apart and things were not going to turn out well. I was catastrophizing. And that was a really painful place to be. I imagine it's a lot like deciding to go to a movie. I go to the movie theater. I look at the billboard and I pick out the movie that I think is going to be the best for me. I buy a ticket. I get my popcorn and a drink. I choose my seat carefully. I sit down and I'm going to enjoy my day, my evening. But the movie isn't good. It's a nightmare. It's terrible. Everything's getting worse. It's not getting better. And I am really having a lousy time. Well, of course, I'm going to get myself up out of the chair and go see another movie. But in this part of my life, I didn't seem to be able to switch theaters. I kept watching the same reels and reruns over and over again, endlessly, telling myself a different story. And the thing about that is, that kind of ruminating does no good. I mean, the movie's been produced. The credits have rolled. Sitting around waiting for a different ending is a pretty pointless undertaking. It's not going to change. So why, when I could get up and change my thoughts, was I stuck sitting in the dark in that movie theater watching that terrible film? The replays, the highlights, all of it. Disaster. I tried to shift my way of thinking. I tried a lot of different ways. I had a couple of close friends that were giving me pretty good guidance, advice, sharing their own experience with things like this. And one of them told me a story about, imagine being in a train station and you can see all of the boards with all the places you could go. Some seem exciting. Some seem like boring or dull, or why would I go there? I don't want to go there, and that is how they looked at their thoughts. that they were just running by, and they would hop on whatever train made the most sense for them. What would be the best journey? That felt incredibly overly simplified for me, and I didn't feel capable of doing it. But I tried. I mean, in looking back, I'm pretty sure I spent a lot of my time sitting in the wrong movie theater and hopping on the wrong trains. I was pretty willing to try anything. And I liked the notion of being able to make a choice to do something different. But it wasn't happening to me as fast as I would have liked anyways. I'm a gardener, and gardening is a wonderful way to see growth and transformation. I get to see things transform all the time, from a little seed to a beautiful flower, and then back into the ground at the end of the season. And I come from a place and a time where I really love the notion of repurposing things and making old things useful again. I recycle, I compost, that's who I am. And I made these fairy gardens. And it was suggested to me, because of a situation that came up, that I could put that skill to good use and maybe get myself out of the rut of my thinking. You see, I had somebody that I cared about who wasn't me, and they had been wronged. Maybe my righteous indignation gene was on high alert after what had happened to me, but I was genuinely disturbed. I was angry. And I think I need to say that I really wasn't angry very much in my life. I kind of took it and just barreled on through, moved forward or on to the next, onward and upward. And I never really expressed or felt the emotion of anger very much. But it had come on pretty strong here recently. And I needed to put that energy somewhere else. And this person that was harmed, they were a grown-up. They could handle their own situations. That other person that I was so angry with, they hadn't harmed me. They had harmed someone I cared about. But I was really attached to that story, and it was upsetting me. So the suggestion went that I should create a fairy garden. And when I tended it, I should think about this situation and that person. I could think about it all I wanted to while I was working on that creative project. I loved creating these fairy gardens. I had this one old cracked terracotta pot. It had a big V-shaped crack in it, large enough, but still most of the pot was intact. It was a pretty good sized pot. And I took that V-shape that cut out and I stuck the jagged edge into the spot where the V came down at the bottom, the narrowest point. And I filled it with soil. And that wedge that I shoved into that narrowest part of the V became a balcony, a terrace. I took seashells that I had collected over the years and stones that I loved that I picked up on walks on the ocean. And I created a little staircase up the side of the pot in the soil. I filled it with soil. And I took some twigs and stuck them in there and put a little, I don't know, one of those tiny glittery bags, mesh bags. I fashioned it as a hammock. And I found this old metal finial that had been out in the yard rusting away, and I stuck it in the ground of the top of the fairy garden. It was like a turret. And little by little, I would find these little odds and ends, treasures that I collected, that it would be thrown out, but it was like an interesting bauble, and I would add it. I remember I took this one blue stone, flat stone, and gave it a lake for a while. As I tended this fairy garden, I was allowed to ruminate a bit about what happened. And the craziest thing happened. As time went by, I thought less and less about the situation, and more I got lost in the process of creating. And I feel like that strong emotion of anger didn't mesh well with the creativity, and the creativity started to win out. I think I also came to realize more and more over time that this anger was like a poison, and it wasn't doing me any good. It wasn't changing anything. And so it kind of just started to lose its hold on me. And one day, I think in retrospect, I noticed that the hook was gone. The thing that had me tied into the story had just dissipated. It wasn't there anymore. And it was the strangest thing, because no apology had been made, no justice had been served, nothing had changed externally. But I felt differently about it. And that was really wonderful news. I really was grateful to feel so differently about it. Just by focusing my energy and my thoughts in a different direction. Maybe I was getting on different trains. Maybe I was choosing to watch different movies now. The stories I was telling myself, they were always in the past triumphant or failure, and there was all this stuff in the middle. That was something worth exploring. It didn't happen overnight, but I can tell you that somewhere down the road, through a kind of crazy set of circumstances, the person to whom I had felt this great anger and resentment towards ended up coming to my house for a group thing, a community thing of sorts. And they saw the fairy garden that I had made. It had long since had any direct attachment to them. It didn't carry the meaning it had when I constructed it. And I had changed it over time. The lake went away, a little mountain went in. I enjoyed these little whimsical things. And they were a good creative endeavor and distracting from some other thoughts. At any rate, they admired it. And I remember thinking, this is fantastic. I said, really? You like that? That's so cool. I feel like you should have it. I feel like it was made for you. And a little bit of silent in the back of my mind, knowing it actually was made for you, but in a very different moment. And when they left that day, they left with the fairy garden. I didn't need it anymore in a tangible or a symbolic way. It was just gone. And I was glad. I was really glad it was gone. And I think I became willing to entertain different thoughts, to try and see things differently. And so I did. I developed what I think is referred to as a beginner mind. And I escaped the trap of certainty. I had been so certain my whole life, certain I would succeed, certain I would, marry that guy, certain that my life would look like this. And then I had a different kind of certainty. I was certain I would never be okay again. Nothing was ever going to be good. I wasn't safe. I was certain that I wasn't even safe to go back and rebuild my life, because it would all come crumbling down again. I just had this certainty, which was really crushing me. In either direction, it was no good. And I just started to believe. I let go of the I know. I know how this is going to turn out. I know what this is going to be like. And little by little, my thoughts changed, which was really wonderful news. And I think it's like If I look at cooking shows on social media, cooking videos, I'm going to get more and more and more of them. Or I could look at silly kitten videos and get more and more of that. And I'm making choices, and the algorithm is picking up on that, and it's serving me more and more of that. And when that kind of clicked in my mind that I had been choosing disaster and catastrophe or unrealistic triumph, I thought, what else is there out there? What trains would I like to get on? What are the possibilities? What might happen next? I didn't know. And that was good news. Anything could happen. I became really curious about all kinds of things. And it was a very expansive experience. Suddenly, with that lack of certainty and that beginner mind, I really did start to look at things very differently. I was rewiring my algorithm, and I think at some point it's changed for the immeasurably good. And I think that anybody can do that. It takes time. One choice, one thought, slowly, the algorithm changes our focus, where attention goes, energy flows. So if this episode resonated with you, I hope you'll subscribe, share with someone you love, share with someone who is on the same journey or needs to hear this, and please come back next week. We're just getting started.